Good morning, family. Welcome to today. I want to take you to Psalm 22, verse 6 today, which reads, "But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by everyone, despised by the people." So Psalm 22 is, of course, the psalm Jesus referenced when he cried out from the cross during his crucifixion. And because of that, when I saw that he called himself a worm, I just interpreted that to mean that on the cross, he did not feel like God. He did not feel like man. He felt as lowly as a worm. And that makes sense to me, right? Because when I think of a worm, I think of death and I think of like underworld. I definitely don't think of anything like holy and beautiful. But that's why when I did some digging on this word worm, I was really surprised with what I found. So there are two words in Hebrew used in the Bible for the word worm. There's rima, which means maggot, but then there is taula, which means crimson or scarlet. And it's actually taula that is used for worm here in verse 6 of Psalm 22. So to clarify, we are talking about the crimson worm. And the crimson worm, its life cycle just really reflects the gospel. And I'm going to explain how. So there comes a time in a crimson worm's life when it climbs a tree in order to birth a family. And in doing so, it knows it must die. Once it's up on the tree, it attaches itself to the tree. It makes itself really secure so that you can't, if you pull it away, you're gonna kill the worm. And it does this because its body is gonna become a protective shelter for its egg and eventually her young. So it attaches to the tree, and then during the birthing process, it secretes this crimson fluid, and that fluid covers her, and it also covers her babies and the tree, and it leaves a permanent stain. Then for 3 days, the babies actually feed on the mother, and it's during this time that if you do scrape off the worm, you can use that secretion to make a dye, a red dye. More on that later. So they feed on the mom for 3 days. Then on the 4th day, the tail of the worm curls up into its head and it makes like a ball, almost like a heart shape. And it changes color from red to white. And it actually looks like a patch of wool on the tree, which is really cool. But then over time, it starts to flake, and these white flakes drop to the ground, and it resembles snow. So that's really cool. But then what's even cooler is the crimson worm, that secretion is the oldest known natural dye for the color red. And it's believed in biblical times that it was used in the high priest's robe as well as the covering of the tabernacle in the wilderness. So, I mean, that crimson worm, it's a cool bug. And I just think it's so fascinating because it's just another example of how creative and humble and thoughtful our God is, that of everything he created, he chose a worm to depict this most beautiful story through. Yeah, I just think that's so cool. If you guys want to know anything more about the crimson worm, you can do a simple Google search. I'm also going to attach some resources that I used in putting this Devo together. It's a widely known thing, so some of you may have heard of this before, but I hope it was a nice reminder. And yeah, just go out and enjoy God's wonder in nature today. That would be my prayer for you. Have a blessed day. Shalom.